Hello there, thank you for joining me. This is a video I've wanted to make for some time, and now seems as good a time as any to discuss this topic. It's December the 18th, 2017, and it's a week to go to Christmas, roughly. So I just want to talk about Christmas as an event, as a season in the Western world, well, in the world really, because I think the commercialization aspect is spreading to other parts of the world. And that's the aspect I really want to talk about. Now, I don't want to come from a point of lecturing, I don't want to sound like that at all, but I just want to make a few sort of observations about the pros and cons of this period. Now, it goes without saying that most people growing up, certainly in the UK, would remember Christmas from a young age. It's a magical time, you know. There's Santa Claus, you get presents, and so on and so on. And I do think that Christmas is predominantly a good thing. I think there's some good values there. Spending time with loved ones, and that doesn't necessarily just mean family, it can mean romantic partners, it can mean friends, just people you care about generally. And I do think that you can see a palpable sense of decency around Christmas time. I do think it brings out some positive aspects of human nature. You do see people being more patient with each other. You do see people being benevolent and so on. Paradoxically, you also see sometimes, honestly, the worst side of human nature. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to be seen as a cynic here. I think Christmas is predominantly a good thing, but you do see two sides. So I want to discuss a little bit the side that is not so good. Maybe I'll round up on the more positive side just so that people don't think I'm a Scrooge, because I'm really not. So for me, the whole present giving aspect is something that brings about a few talking points. In my own family, we've always, I feel, got a good balance in that we give thoughtful presents to each other, and we do put thought into it, and we do give presents as a tradition, as do most British families. And I like that, you know, it's something I look forward to, and I like the process of wrapping presents and giving them to my relatives. Um, but I think there is a commercial aspect to Christmas, and people might say I'm sounding like a socialist here. I don't consider myself a socialist, but there is a side to this where I think there is a negative aspect of capitalism. And what I mean by that is that around Christmas time, particularly, it occurs in other seasons as well, in Easter and Valentine's Day, but particularly at Christmas time, I really do think that companies will be quite tactical in how they go about things. I mean, I'll give an example. A lot of children's toys are extortionate prices. Not everything. You can look around, you can get bargains, but I think there's something very frankly manipulative going on there. I think companies know that children badger their parents, and parents give in and buy things. So this is a side to Christmas I don't like. That there is too much of a money aspect. Now people say, "Oh, if money shouldn't mean anything," but that's rubbish. Quite honestly, I think that's rubbish. The only people who can afford to say that are people who don't have any financial worries. You know, people say things like money shouldn't be a barrier. But to be honest, I find that one of the most idiotic statements around. Money is a barrier for a lot of people. So I read a report in the Metro recently. It's a free UK newspaper, and it said that there are parents actually going into overdraft, running into debt, sacrificing Christmas dinner in order to get super expensive presents for their children. I find that very sad. Just very sad. It really shouldn't be that way. And I don't think it's the fault of the children. Children don't know any better. It's parents being too much of a pushover. But I do think big companies also have a role to play because they are putting up extortionate prices and they're playing this really manipulative game where they know that, children. I think it's the same, frankly, with pets. I mean, if you look at, for example, there's been controversy in the past, and I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but vet bills is a big issue. Veterinary surgeon bills are extortionate, and I'm not quite sure how they justify that. I know sometimes, okay, granted, I'm going totally off on a tangent. This is totally unrelated, so I'll get back to subject. Apology. Maybe that's for another video. But I do think there is a very cynical, manipulative thing going on there, and I don't like it. Um, I have neighbours, and in my own family, we've done this to some extent, whereby there is a principle of giving presents that are made. Now, I think this is a very nice idea. I remember when we were children, my mum used to do woodwork. She had a woodwork course, and she actually made toys for us. And I'm 32 now. I still remember that. They are presents that they've been passed down to my niece and nephew. They're a little bit old for them now, but I really like the idea of that. And I don't think it's a case of sometimes we're very hard on children. We say, oh, children are brats these days. They just want computer games, etc. Not necessarily. Children, I believe, are as actually imaginative as ever. It's just that when parents pander to a certain commercial demand, like if a 5-year-old wants the latest Xbox game, etc., I think the onus is on the parents not to pander too much to that sort of thing. And I appreciate that over time, toys change. I get that. So what would be popular, I don't know, in the 50s wouldn't be exactly the same today. Fair enough. But I do think that that aspect needs to be looked at. And it isn't just with children. I watched an episode of Friends recently, and people might think I'm nitpicking here. But I think it reiterates my point. And don't get me wrong, I love Friends. I think it was a great show. I really enjoyed Friends. I thought, yeah, I'm a big fan of Friends. But there was one episode that got me a little bit annoyed. It was one of the Christmas episodes, and basically, if you know Friends, you'll know what I'm talking about. Rachel and yeah, it was Rachel and Phoebe were trying to find presents, and they were trying to encourage Chandler to help them. And one of them came out with this line: "How are you going to look when Monica gets you a really expensive present and you've got these crappy presents?" Now that got me thinking that there. I mean, it's a TV show. I'm not one of these people who are triggered like, "Oh, that's awful." But it just got me thinking about wider implications that there are people who put material value in everything. Now, I was brought up to believe, and I believe in myself, that when someone gives me something, I say thank you. I don't say, oh, how much did this cost? And I don't care, well, I don't judge what the item is. In my thinking, that person has given me something. It's not only polite to say thank you, it's just a basic question of decency. And I do think that, I'm going to sound really old fashioned here, but I do think to some extent, where there's too much commercialization at Christmas, we can sacrifice basic values like gratitude. This isn't the case in my own family, and I'm not trying to lecture anyone else. It's just a general sort of observation that that can be an issue. Now, that example in Friends, what Phoebe and Rachel as characters were only thinking about was the material worth of the items. Chandler in that episode had the right idea. Let's not ruin Christmas by trying to find the presents. Phoebe and Rachel were being really shallow, and it did irritate me. That episode irritated me because there are people out there like that, where they put the worth of something or someone on the material cost of an item. That's very sad. I do understand that if there's certain situations, husbands, wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, there is a certain sentiment there. So I don't know if your partner got you something extremely meaningful that meant a lot to you, and you got them, I don't know, a cheap everyday item that you could get anyone, I could understand the disappointment there. I can. But as a general thing, I think people put too much emphasis on the material value of things. As far as I'm concerned, I would be grateful no matter how small something is. And that might sound, I don't know, but to me, it's just a basic question of decency. I don't like wonder how much was this, you know? And I think there are people out there like that. And I think that is one of the negative side effects of this time of the year. I'm going to try not to make this video too long, so I'll just say a few more things. It goes without saying that for some people, Christmas is the loneliest time of the year. We have an aging population in this country, and there's been increasing focus in recent years on the number of older people who are lonely. Maybe their husband or their wife has passed away. Maybe they're disconnected from their family. And this is a real issue. Also, the number of homeless people has been increasing in this country, and it's awful at any time of the year. But I think at Christmas time in particular, I find it very difficult to walk past homeless people. And I know that just giving change to them won't necessarily help. I get that. I'm not a fool. But I do find it very hard to see that sort of thing. At this time of the year in particular, it's sometimes it exacerbates that. So when we're all thinking about, oh, Christmas is a lovely time, not for everyone. Not for everyone. And it isn't just people in the absolute worst situations, it's people who may be struggling, maybe financially, they've got financial worries, which again comes into the whole issue of presents. The whole point about presents shouldn't be a competition to see how much something is. It should be the principle of giving something to someone. It should be how much something costs. And I do feel that sometimes as a society we can be too pressurizing in that regard. And if it ends up as a competition, I mean, there's certain things. Black Friday, I know that's not technically Christmas, but I don't see the point of that. I think it should be discarded because it brings out the ugliest aspects of human nature. People beating each other up to get cheap items. And the thing is, these people aren't dirt poor. We're not talking about starving peasants. We're talking about people who just let this thing get to their heads. And it's pathetic and it's sad. And I really think we should discard the whole notion of Black Friday, or at least find some way to change the whole point of it, to change the whole approach to it. Boxing Day sales, similar. Anyone who wants to get into a fist fight, and this is men and women, in fact, quite honestly, it's probably more women than men that do this. Anyone who wants to tear someone's hair out or, you know, attack someone because you want to get something that they've seen, it's pathetic. I mean, are we animals? Are we hyenas? No. This is just pathetic. So to me, don't get me wrong, I really do like Christmas. I like the decorations. I like the atmosphere of Christmas. I really do. But I do feel somewhat wary of the materialism aspect of it. And don't get me wrong, I'm not someone who lives in loincloths. I enjoy presents as much as the next person. I really do. And I always appreciate what I get. But I don't think that that should be the major focus of Christmas. And that sounds like a cliche. It maybe sounds like I'm preaching, which is really not my intention. Just some honest observations. So tell me what it's like in your part of the world if you're in the States. Because I think in America, it's pretty much like every other Western country. Canada, New Zealand, Australia, wherever you are in the world, maybe in other parts of Europe, the whole present giving aspect is not as emphasized as in the Anglophile world. In fact, the Anglo world maybe it's a bigger thing in the US, Canada, Britain, Ireland. Who knows? So let me know what it's like in your part of the world. But I really think that And by the way, whether you're religious or not, that's another aspect. A lot of people say the Christian aspect of Christmas is being over the. I do think that we should appreciate the fact that there is very fundamental Christian, Judeo-Christian origins in Christmas. I mean, there is. So I don't like to use the term Xmas. I find it a bit, I don't know. But I think it is fair to say that has expanded now into, people recently got worked up because there was this ad. It was one of the big supermarkets, one of the big stores. And to be fair, they do some very thought provoking, very feel good ads. I can't remember if it was Marks and Spencer's or Sainsbury's. They're famous in the UK for making creative ads every year. But one of them showed this. It was literally like 3 seconds. It showed these Muslim women coming into a house, and it was a Christmas ad. And some people were up in arms over that. And I'm thinking, grow up, really. Um, there are problems with pan Islamism, but that is not one of them. Because this is an event that goes beyond Christians and, you know, I mean, I've got a Hindu friend and she wished me happy Christmas. So people need to really get a grip on these things, and not exaggerate and not be too sensitive. But that's it. Let me know your thoughts. I think Christmas is mostly a good thing. I enjoy Christmas. I like it. And I like giving out cards. I like wrapping presents. And I try to be grateful for what I get. But I am a bit wary of the financial commercial side of it, whereby people are judged on how many presents they get. And I don't think that big stores help. I don't think that multinational companies help. I don't think Hollywood helps. I'm not calling for some sort of campaign or something like that. It's just an observation. But when you see something like Home Alone, right? I mean, the McAllister family, they've got like 100 presents under the tree. I mean, I'm thinking, are these people multimillionaires? It's, the point of Christmas shouldn't be about how much you spend. It should be about the basic principle of goodwill and just having a good time. Yeah. And I do think we should think about those who maybe are lonely at this time of year, homeless people. I was going to say older people, but some younger people as well could be lonely for whatever reason. Um, that's all. And this year in particular in the UK, there's going to be people facing, the Grenfell survivors, the survivors and families of all these terrorist attacks this year. This has been a particularly hard year in the UK. Yesterday there was yet another road accident, Birmingham. 6 people died. We've had a lot of tragedies this year in this country. So I'm thinking of people dealing with those situations this time of the year. I feel it could almost feel like it's being rubbed in. That's another thing we need to be aware of, that it really isn't a joyous time for everyone. That's all. Okay, let me know your thoughts and thank you for watching.